¿Se puede escuchar?
Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be getting started at 9:05. Thanks for being here.
I was in charge of music and being DJ. But I realized if I play this really loud, I can't hear any of you. So.
So Vanessa, right now there's music playing, right? Or not? Just curious.
¿Ya puedo empezar? Ándale. Good morning, everyone. Hello, welcome. Let's get things together. So let's let some people join in. It's a beautiful day in Tucson. All right. It's 9:05 and I want to be respectful of people's time. Thank you everyone for joining us. Good morning. Welcome to the City of Tucson Climate Action Celebration, where 1 year ago this day, in the middle of a global pandemic, our mayor and city council saw that we're the front lines of another global catastrophe, right? And what that is climate action, right? Climate, I lost my sight. So it's climate action. And a year ago, an emergency was declared. And this is significant. And right now it's a perfect opportunity to celebrate the great progress that the city of Tucson has made, you know, declaring this historic emergency declaration. And it's now the time that we can showcase how the community and how partners have come together to address and really meet the goals of this declaration. So I want to talk a little bit about how the city of Tucson has decided to address this big topic. And this is using science-based and people-centered framework alongside with equity methodology. The city of Tucson has embarked on a great goal to bring the city and community to the table. And it began with climate action community surveys in the spring of 2021. These were concluded by May, and in June and July, there was virtual climate action listening sessions that were made to target communities such as businesses, the business sector, local nonprofits, workers, trabajadores, Spanish-speaking populations, as well as our indigenous communities. These sessions highlighted the importance of communication, trust building, and especially with historically underserved communities. It also brought front and foremost the ways that we have to deal with communities and working with communities. I want to take a moment right now to acknowledge the lands that we're talking about. And these are the lands of the Pascuayaqui Yome people, the Tohono O'odham peoples who have been caretakers of this land that we're inhabiting and that we're talking about. I want to take a pause right there. But this information and input that was gathered through the surveys and the climate action surveys really will help plan the next 10 years for the city of Tucson. Some notable points that the city has done in their commitments is committing to solar energy. And right now, since 2019, 38 completed projects have been done, and you can see probably around town, especially in your ward offices. Recently, with the support of electrification of vehicles, the city has committed with making their public fleet electrified, as well as some of the public transits already on our streets. Other things to note is some new ordinances for electrification of vehicles regarding residential buildings. Other projects that we can highlight is the Million Tree Initiative, in which it right now is active in planting trees. Both this does sequester CO2, as well as reducing emissions, as well as meeting our goals for 2030, and that's reducing 50% of emissions. So how Tucson becomes a resilient community is working with the partnerships. And today what we're going to do is highlight some of these partnerships. So today's is filled with a great morning full of events. And the biggest one right now that we're going to talk about is having our panelists. So these panelists include the City of Tucson, the partnerships, the YWCA, Local First Arizona, Tucson 2030 District, and others, with Tucson Clean and Beautiful as well. So right now, what I want to do is I want to introduce our Mayor, Regina Romero. This is our city mayor, Regina Romero. She was raised by immigrant farm workers in Somerton, Arizona. Regina Romero is the youngest of 6 children and began breaking barriers early as the first of her family to vote and the first to graduate from college. She's a proud graduate of the University of Arizona and holds postgraduate certificates from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. In 2007, Regina became the first woman to represent Tucson's Ward 1 on the city council. While on the council, Regina lifted the city of Tucson out of a great recession and to its prosperous decade in the recent history, helping spur creation of thousands of high-wage long-term jobs. She has proven herself to be a champion for issues such as acting boldly on climate change, affordable housing, infrastructure investment, immigrant and workers' rights, and access to high-quality education. In November 2019, Regina was elected as Tucson mayor, becoming the first woman and Latina mayor of Tucson, as well as the only Latina mayor in the 50 largest US cities. Regina is a proud mother of 2, bilingual by culture and by adorable children, Emiliano and Luciana, and has been married to Loren Reyes for 15 years. So without further ado, I want to introduce our mayor, Regina Romero.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and thank you all for putting this amazing event together. So happy that the City of Tucson, my office, and the Y, and so many of you have partnered to make this 1-year anniversary celebration of taking action on climate a celebration, because it really set us up into the City of Tucson with our partners, taking action and making expedited change in what we need. Vanessa, you had mentioned that we must acknowledge and thank the original people of this land, the Yoeme people and the Tohono people. I also want to thank, like I said before, Magdalena with the YWCA and all the YWCA team, as well as Local First Arizona for bringing us together this morning. And I'd like to thank you, Vanessa and Fuga, and all of the individuals that are working so hard to bring this necessary and bold change that we need when it comes to climate action in Tucson. When I was running as mayor in 2019, I was very deliberate in listening to Tucsonans. And while doing my canvassing work as a candidate, I canvassed every single side of town, south side, west side, north side, east side, midtown, and canvassing every neighborhood, one neighborhood at a time, and talking to many people here and identifying the main issues that kept our community up at night. Climate change was one of the top concerns, and it really wasn't a surprise for me, because in our work, in our previous work as a council member and as the director of Latino engagement at the Center for Biological Diversity, we had started seeing, we had started working with communities of color and low-income communities and starting to do the research as to how climate change affects frontline communities. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report was released last month, and the projections are not looking good at all. The report, approved by 195 governments and based on more than 14,000 studies, indicates that some devastating impacts of global warming are now unavoidable. A hotter future is now essentially locked in, but there is still a short window to stop things from getting even worse. We must accelerate our decarbonization efforts locally and globally. We all have a role to play, from individuals reducing energy consumption and conserving water in their homes, to businesses adopting green and socially responsible practices, to our city governments systematically addressing climate change. Last year, my colleagues on the council and I made a commitment to Tucsonans. We declared a climate emergency and pledged to become a carbon neutral city by 2030. Since then, we have made significant progress. We adopted an electric vehicle readiness roadmap to support community-wide EV adoption. Our transit system now has 5 zero-emission electric buses and will receive 4 more next year. And we will continue moving in the direction of electric buses. We have embarked in a zero waste path and opened a compost facility at Los Reales Sustainability Campus. Through the Tucson Million Trees initiatives and with our partners, Trees for Tucson and Tucson Water, we are increasing tree canopy in heat vulnerable communities while installing green stormwater infrastructure to capture and filter stormwater. We are protecting our water resources with key water policies, which are differential rates and conservation programs in Tucson Water. We are promoting infill and transit-oriented development with code changes for accessory dwelling units. And we are being deliberate in centering equity in all that we do. Today, on the anniversary of the Climate Emergency Declaration, it is important to recognize the collective work that we have done so far, including the local businesses that will be highlighted today. Congratulations to all green business graduates, and thank you for doing your part. I cannot wait to see the YWCA's House of Neighborly Service becoming a model of sustainable business practices, as well as the Women's Business Center work on empowering entrepreneurs to become green stewards through scholarships. As the mayor of the city of Tucson, I am fortunate to have a business and nonprofit community that is actively adopting green practices and supporting our environment while cutting costs. Let's celebrate our climate action and sustainability accomplishments today, but let's also acknowledge there's lots of work to be done ahead. The climate and ecological crises are not waiting, and neither can we. So I will depend on all of your help and support to be bold and act quickly on climate resiliency here in the city of Tucson. Muchísimas gracias por invitarme, and I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
So we will be continuing with our panelists, and I want to introduce our panelists today. So Magdalena Verdugo is the YWCA Chief Executive Officer. Magdalena was named Chief Executive Officer for the YWCA of Southern Arizona in December 2019. As the first Latina leader in the illustrious 104-year history of the organization, she will work tirelessly to ensure the longstanding mission of equity, inclusion, and fulfillment of its impact that resonates well into the future. Verdugo's guiding vision is to build the YWCA of Southern Arizona into a premier one-stop location for bilingual, integrated leadership, well-being, financial empowerment, workforce training, and business development services in the region. It's a diverse place for women of all profession, incomes, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and experiences can come work together and network, collaborate, and receive professional guidance. Our next panelist is Michael Peel, Local First Arizona Statewide Sustainability Director. Michael Peel has over 15 years of experience in sustainability program development, local first business nonprofit support services with a focus on sustainability planning and project implementation, grant writing, and research. Michael is a proud native of Tucson, Arizona. Throughout his career, Michael has been awarded multiple distinctions and honors, including Tucson 40 Under 40, Tucson 2030 District Changemaker Award, and the U.S. Green Building Council Volunteer of the Year. He received his BA in Government and Leadership from Claremont McKenna College and his Master of Education, Educational Leadership from Northern Arizona, and is currently a doctoral candidate at Arizona State University, focused on community engagement and equity and sustainability. So thank you so much, panelists, for being here. I have a list of questions for you to answer here, and in no particular order, but actually I will be calling y'all out. So, folks here in the audience, what we did was compile some questions here for our panelists, which I'll be reading and they'll be answering. So thank you so much again for being here, and we'll commence. So the first question I wanted to ask the panelists is, what does the City of Tucson Climate Energy Declaration mean to you? Is there any particular part of the declaration that is more important to you, or certain efforts? So I wanted to start off with, of course, our mayor, just to continue the conversation of what does this mean to you?
Well, for me, it's a serious commitment that mayor and council made to our community, to Tucsonans, about treating climate change as an emergency and as a crisis that it is. Last year, we not only saw a worldwide pandemic that we all had to suffer through together, but we also saw, and we're seeing today, very concerning. We have been seeing it for the last 2 decades, but not as in our faces as it was last year. We were in the middle of a drought. We had no monsoons. We had seen both in Phoenix and Tucson more than 100-degree days in both in Tucson and Phoenix. We saw record numbers of people die of heat-related illnesses. We saw wildfires throughout Arizona and throughout the West. It was incredible. And so for me, what it means is that it's a commitment from us, the mayor and council, that we will do everything we can do and we called it out, by the way, the climate emergency. We not only wanted it to be words on paper, we were very deliberate in my office, and I have to thank Fatima Luna, my climate and sustainability advisor, who's an amazingly talented, smart woman that I was lucky to be able to get on my team as we were developing, the infrastructure to deal with this issue here in the city of Tucson. She worked heavily with community groups and youth to set goals for ourselves. And those goals that we set in the climate emergency are for us to start moving immediately in every level of the city of Tucson in its services and how we provide services to our community. And we committed to doing it with an eye to equity. And so for me, it's a day-to-day commitment. And I want to make sure that, this is also on a personal level. I want to make sure that my children, Emiliano and Luciana, have a world where they could actually live in, right? I want them to be able to live here in Tucson and help and do their service to our community into the future. So it's a personal thing, and it's something that we have to do immediately.
Thank you so much. Magdalena, if you can answer the question, what does the climate action declaration mean to you?
Gracias, Vanessa. Well, first and foremost, I want to say the declaration was congratulations to the mayor and the council, because this is, from my perspective, forward thinking. And I'm praising your ambitiousness of this declaration. I think for us at the YWCA, the plan or the declaration for us was, first of all, it was our hook to addressing the sustainable development goals, right? But the exciting piece of it is recognizing the call out of the emergencies that we're facing. The mayor shared some of those statistics, but the fact that global warming impacts communities of color by way of food insecurity because of lower crop yields, for example, that's 4.5 billion people are impacted as a result of heat waves. The emphasis from the city in acknowledging we are actually the fastest warming city. Tucson, Arizona are the third fastest warming city and state. So when we look at it, the earth is already hot when we think of safety and injustice. So I commend the mayor and the council and for allowing us to really, through the declaration, call out what the emergencies are and what we need to pay attention to also. But I took it as a call to action. The first part of the resolution calls for collaboration on an equitable and just transition. And so I took it personally and on behalf of the YWCA as like my marching orders. So how can we not do this work, right? It's in our policies, it's in our mission of eliminating racism. When we talk about all of the justices, environmental justice has to be part of our work. And so that's how we took it. It's a framework calling out what the emergency is in the different areas. It's a call to action, and it's an opportunity for us to step up.
Thank you, Magdalena. So Michael, if you can follow and add your input here.
Thank you, Vanessa. And first, thank you to Mayor Romero and council for the vision to put this forward, to mobilize us all so that we can collaborate. And I think it's an opportunity to have Southern Arizona and Tucson stand out nationally and be a model for inclusive economic development, new economy solutions, equitable community and economic benefits as we meet the challenges of the day. And I think that we know the challenges of the day, we know the data, and we know we need to do more and ensure that it doesn't get worse for especially certain areas of our community, and having awareness around equity, as you all do at the council level, and Mayor Romero always prioritizing equity, knowing the disproportionate impacts of extreme heat and the costs that rise and all the cost savings that can occur. And that disproportionate impact needs to be framed with all the work that we do. And at Local First Arizona, we know sustainable business practices are an integral part of a more resilient, regenerative, and human economy. There are opportunities to create new jobs and rise to the opportunities at the federal level and nationally. And I think for me, particularly pledging to become carbon neutral by 2030 is bold and so needed. And it links to national goals like the 2030 Challenge for Planning. And that's defined as by 2030, all existing buildings and new buildings as well, but particularly existing buildings within developments and neighborhoods and towns and cities and regions to implement at least a 50% reduction standard below the regional average and median for fossil fuel operating energy consumption and CO2 emissions from transportation, water consumption, and really energy, water, and transportation being the areas that we need to focus on, and the electric vehicle opportunities that we're starting to work on together, and working with businesses like Hotel Congress to be the model for others to learn from, and also everything with the Million Trees Initiative, nature-based solutions to ensure that there are shade equity efforts underway and linking to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I'm really excited to work with the YWCA to look at the linking between local to national to global.
Michael, that's wonderful. You mentioned a little bit of what the question I was going to ask, which was what are some major actions that you have taken over the year? Is there any one in particular that you want to highlight for us?
Thank you. I'll start with the work with the YWCA and forming a collaborative, a community of practice with the House of Neighborly Service in South Tucson to be it's the first Green Champions program project to meet the 2030 challenge for planning goals in the next few years that we have a plan for now to meet and exceed the 2030 challenge for planning goals, and working together to improve their operations on site and save on energy costs and water costs, and looking at their whole footprint on site. So I think that's a big opportunity to learn from. We have a whole report available to see what we're up to with the work of many partners, including Eco Blue and Mrs. Green's World and Watershed Management Group and the University of Arizona, and many partners engaged, and of course the 2030 district for Tucson. So we are working together there, and also with the businesses to the Women's Business Center, and having programs available for green leaders certification, the green business certification, and scale up project planning for going even further, and then the Green Champions program for going even further. So the YWCA of Southern Arizona is the first organization to commit to all three programs that we have available, and they're really walking the walk. So thank you to the YWCA for your strong leadership for climate and community.
Amazing. Well, Magdalena, please tell us more about this great action that the YWCA is embarking on.
Well, as Mike shared, I think I shared earlier that, it's almost when you learn and you're passionate about something, you want to share it. And you want to share it with your community. You want to share it and be a model with your community. And that's what HNS is for us. I mentioned earlier that the call, I took the declaration as a call for action. And I was in a place at that time too, where leveraging the space that I was sitting in with the YWCA leadership to make the impact and make those decisions. So our first biggest major action was really partnering with Local First Arizona. And I recall it just was a simple conversation that I was having with Mike about how we could possibly work together. And I think at that time, I just made the commitment, and it was like, we're going to do this, and I'm going to commit. I want to be the first nonprofit, and I want to model it for our community that this is attainable. And so partnering with Local First Arizona to be able to impact the small businesses that you will hear about later that have participated in the Green Business Program, joining the 2030 district as well, and really reallocation of funding. That was huge. So we had the opportunity at HNS to leverage resources to invest those resources in building a more sustainable site. And so we launched the audit with all the partners that Mike just shared at House of Neighborly Services. And House of Neighborly Services happens to be within the City of South Tucson. It was not included in the emergency declaration, yet we focused our efforts on HNS because it is considered one of the poorest neighborhoods. And we saw that studies and research shows that poor communities tend to be 4 degrees hotter than wealthier neighborhoods in the same area. And so you'll see later our tree planting celebration, and and really looking at our communities that are underserved and adopting more green and sustainable practices, and being able to showcase that and be a model for that. So we're very, very excited, because with the audit, it's almost, again, the help that we needed to know how we're going to, how could I say, convert HNS, I should say, into a sustainable property in community, but we're doing it with community. That is the biggest thing, is we took feedback from community, we shared why the importance of us doing this, and hopefully we're sharing how they can take small steps themselves in change, and in changing how they become more energy efficient. Learning about water, that's we're still learning about this, but we're committed, and we're committed to the Millions Trees Initiative, focusing on undershaded areas in our community. Again, statistics show that shade and tree coverage in low communities is slim. So focusing, we are committed to making environmental justice one of the many justices that we at the YWCA work towards addressing. It was a no-brainer for us.
Oh, fantastic. Well, considering that this is not easy, Mayor Romero, the next question is, what challenges and barriers have you faced in the past year with trying to implement such an ambitious, goal?
Challenges and barriers are something that I've grown up with, but I always push forward with. But in many different levels, the pandemic really had me focus on our community's health, and we had to really focus on making sure that Tucsonans and our children in our most vulnerable communities were well protected. And so at the beginning, it seemed to take my entire time as the newly elected mayor of the city of Tucson. And then we kind of got used to working at home and got used to, dealing with these urgencies after emergencies. And my team and I said, we have to push through on the issues that we've run on, and we have to move fast towards making a difference. So this past year really taught us that we have to continue being flexible, that when we work in government and with nonprofits and community partners, that sometimes you have to focus and then refocus on the issues that are transformative for our community. So in the middle of a campaign and in the middle of a pandemic, and with all the urgencies that we were living through last year, we had to refocus quickly and be flexible and work with community to, for example, put the climate emergency together, working virtually with, learning how to work virtually with community was interesting, as well as laying the foundation and the infrastructure to be able to work on climate related issues as a city government. So we laid the foundation in putting, allocating $250,000, $250,000, to hire a consultant to do our climate action plan, which, by the way, we're this close to choosing a consultant that will help us. We also hired the first ever of its kind in the city of Tucson history, an urban forestry manager. We kicked off and solidified the Million Trees initiative in the city of Tucson. We created the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Fund that will help collect stormwater and rainwater to water those trees that we want to plant. You know, we've created all of the infrastructure to be able to deliver on what we know is important for our community. So, you know, the pandemic also highlighted what we all knew already, but it highlighted the inequities of communities of color, in low-income communities, and, you know, who the front line of climate change really are, right? It's low-income communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. It is seniors. Those are our front lines. It's children. Those are our front lines of climate change. Those are the individuals and communities that are feeling firsthand what climate change really is, through asthma, through you know, heat vulnerable neighborhoods in which low income neighborhoods are. So we saw those inequities, and it really reinforced that we're going in the right direction with our climate emergency declaration, with all of our work, and centering it in you know, with an equity lens and with an eye to environmental justice as well.
Thank you, Mayor. And you touched upon our next question, and I'm gonna kick this to Michael. And how does equity factor into your plans on a regular basis, and how can it be improved?
Thank you for that question. And for us at Local First, it ties right to our mission. At Local First, our mission is to build equitable systems for Arizona's local businesses and communities that create a vibrant and inclusive and sustainable Arizona economy. And that means by strengthening and supporting and celebrating entrepreneurship. It means rural and urban community development. It means racial equity. It means environmental action, and it means food access. And so, speaking of our big topic today and how we define sustainability, our team took a lot of time to think over how to really emphasize equity within all the work that we do, within all our programs and resources and tools. And we define sustainability as a multi-pronged approach. It means achieving balance holistically, and that includes relationships, personal, land, businesses, organizations. It means resiliency and absorbing a shock and the ability to bounce back, and how to support where there are gaps and identifying those gaps. It means restorative. It means achieving a more stable, balanced outcome with those resources based on those gaps. And then regenerative, more being put back than being taken, and thinking about how do we get to circular economy approaches, and how do we get to this new economy where we emphasize the environmental benefits and the community benefits just as much as the profit benefits and the traditional economic benefits, and how do they all fit together? And so it really is emphasizing all three levels of individuals, businesses, and communities, and understanding those gaps. And that means a process that's more holistic and community-based to achieve better outcomes. And that includes prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion while prioritizing data-driven outcomes at all times. And so it's really both. It's not just about the data. The data is critical, but it's also about how does it impact the people on a day-to-day basis, and how do we meet them where they're at? And that process addresses the root causes of complex, highly contested, urgent, and deadly problems, aiming for ultimately transformational systemic change.
Wonderful, thank you. And Magdalena, you were pretty thorough about how equity, you know, it is center with the YWCA. Is there anything you'd like to add with how equity, you know, plays on your day-to-day life?
Yes, it's a natural progression for us here at the YWCA. Acknowledging that the impact of climate change is going to hit low-income communities and communities of color first. This is important for us. Keeping that disproportionate impact at the forefront is important because it is all about equity. Increasing awareness, natural work around racial justice, yet we can't continue to address the justices, as I mentioned earlier, with restorative, gender, social, without addressing environmental justice. I say it's in our DNA at the YWCA. Our mission is eliminating racism. Yet all of it can be improved. As we continue to do our work, we will get better. No matter how far we get into it, there will always be room for improvement. But it's more than just doing the work and modeling it. For us, it's about deeply resourcing our community. Not only do we fund our work, but how do we identify resources for what and how our community wants to do this work? So that's what we keep at the forefront.
Wonderful, thank you. Mayor Romero, is there anything you'd like to add regarding equity? You've been really supportive and speaking about how it's centered to you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, that there's always room to improve and learning opportunities. So we have to be very deliberate about engaging the communities that are the front lines of climate change, right? So as we put it and commit to it on paper through our climate emergency declaration in the city of Tucson, we have to follow up with legwork. So let me give you an example. We had our climate survey that we put on our web pages and distributed throughout social media, and we actually got a very, very good return. We reached close to 4,000 folks in the city of Tucson, which is a really good number of folks, so that we could have clear detail as to what people in Tucson want to see when it comes to climate action. But we quickly realized that the great percentage of the folks we reached were white, educated, middle-aged individuals. And so we then extended our community engagement through listening sessions and deliberately engaging youth and tribal members and Spanish-speaking communities, as well as faith-based groups and workers that are day-to-day working in the heat and having to be out there in 105-degree weather. And so being able to evaluate the work and the input and the feedback that we're receiving, and then deliberately planning on going to the people, going to the folks where they are at, is something that we have to continuously be evaluating and pushing to be able to get that input and feedback from those folks that are the front lines. And so just being able to be flexible and learning from our own experiences, and then engaging organizations like the like the YWCA and Local First Arizona, and so many others, to help us get that additional input from folks that are being affected by climate change.
Thank you. So I know this work, it takes a lot to get done. So one of the important questions is, what do you find are the top priorities for both funding and overall policy needs now? If you can answer that for us, Mayor.
Well, funding is always needed, but the wonderful thing is that my colleagues on the council have unanimously committed to finding the funding to push our work, our climate action work forward. We are living in a interesting time when it comes to federal funding. For once in a generation, we see this type of interest from a president and the federal government that acknowledge that in terms of infrastructure, our country is 20, 30 years behind. And so we have an amazing opportunity to tap into federal funds to do transformative work on our infrastructure. And it's not just regular gray infrastructure, right, that we have to invest in. It is the infrastructure of the future that we have to invest in green infrastructure. And I've always maintained, and I think President Biden also says that creating green infrastructure and working on climate resiliency strategies will create jobs. It can and has the opportunity to create the green jobs of the future. And so we have an amazing opportunity. We're looking here in the city of Tucson of expanding and extending our Proposition 101, which is our half-cent sales taxes that was approved by voters about 4 years ago or 3 years ago. No, it was 4 years ago. To reimagine it and reposition it so that we do have investments in our roads because people want good roads. But how do we reimagine the road to serve not just vehicles? Right? How can we create complete streets that have room for cyclists and pedestrians and our public transit systems, and that we can plant trees along the way? And how do we add more emphasis on our transit systems? You know, one of my goals as we talk to the Biden administration is funding a bus rapid transit system. From the Tohono O'odham Transit Center down Oracle Road into downtown, and perhaps into past, South 6th Avenue through South Tucson into the airport, where it has its own dedicated lanes so that people want to use our electric buses that will be dedicated to the bus rapid transit system. So it's just reimagining how we do things. And right now we have an opportunity because we have a president that wants to fund these transformative approaches and the infrastructure of the future.
Wonderful, thank you. Michael, with Local First Arizona, is there any particular policy that you feel that is important in this time?
So thanks for that question. I think there's so much going on right now. It's fast paced to stay on it. And advocacy is an area that anyone can jump in on. I know there's a lot of youth advocacy. Thankful for all the work that's been done to date there and continues to be done. And everything going on right now with infrastructure and the reconciliation, there's a lot of opportunity. So anything related to incentives for businesses can go a long way. With what can be very costly projects. Electric vehicle charging stations can be very costly, for example. I think what's most important with the framework that we have when we're thinking about priorities for policies and funding is how far is it going to get to meet these goals that we have for the businesses, for their benefits, from cost savings to community benefits and equity considerations. We have a lot of resources out there that we can rely on and be including in our advocacy efforts. We've already talked about the 2030 Challenge for Planning goals nationally, the Sustainable Development Goals globally. There's also one of my favorites is Project Drawdown, and that's one of the best resources I've come across for what their mission is to help the world reach drawdown, the point in which in the future, levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stop climbing and start to steadily decline. Therefore, stopping catastrophic climate change as quickly and safely and equitably as possible. So they have solutions within this framework that reduce greenhouse gases by avoiding emissions and or by sequestering carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere. And it's a three-part approach. And I think it's something that we should be pushing in our local advocacy efforts to national to global. To reach drawdown, we have to work on all three of the components of the climate equation. And that means 1, reducing sources and bringing emissions to 0. 2, supporting sinks, and that means uplifting nature's carbon cycle. And 3, improving society, fostering equality for all, that equity emphasis that we've been talking about throughout the panel. So if we take action within all of these areas and really look at the prioritization of these different measures that can be taken, I think it could go a long way to what will make the most sense for the investment, and not just from the cost savings return on investment side, which is very important, but also community return on investment and community benefits. And I think it's all of it together. It's that holistic thinking. So highly recommend it. And I hope that policy efforts can take those types of frameworks into consideration in order for us to have bigger impact that we need.
And Magdalena, with the YWCA, what are the top priorities regarding, funding and policy right now?
Well, in reference to policy, we come from the advocacy perspective for our communities. And I echo what Mike just shared is what's best for our communities and learning from our communities, as I mentioned earlier, how they want to do this work. It is very exciting to hear we have an administration that is focusing on these efforts, and we're waiting patiently and just listening and watching to see how that evolves and how we can draw or hook into it to bring it down to local efforts. And so we're learning at the YWCA, but we're also advocating internally with how we do the work and what we're focusing on. I mentioned earlier, we're learning about water and how we conserve water and what efforts we can put in place internally, and then what we can share right externally with our community, from the type of even paper eliminating bottled waters, for example, used at the YWCA, but providing the opportunity for access to water, right, while you're here. So just that's what we're keeping an eye on, and then and looking for opportunities to see how we can. Funding is always going to be, I think, a need or a focus, but how can we do the work with what we have, right? And Mayor mentioned it earlier. This is not new to us. It's something that personally we've grown up to with challenges, and we just figured it out. And so how do we figure it out with what we know and with what we have access to, and then just shifting the conversation and shifting the allocation of resources and empowering our community to do the same.
I have one more thing, Vanessa, if I can. When it comes to policy, it is very important that those that are, joining us, seeing the panel, and of course the organizations like Local First and the YW, that you all understand the power of your voices in creating policy. It's very, very important that on a local level here in the city of Tucson, that you raise your voices in terms of what we as a jurisdiction need to focus on and focus our budgeting work on. And then locally, but also county-wide, region-wide, state, and federally. Your voices in this process, especially in this point in time, as Magdalena mentioned, we're waiting to see what happens. There is, a possible $3.5 trillion bill that will dedicate trillions of dollars to our human infrastructure, which is what Magdalena has been talking about since the beginning of the panel, human investment in businesses and families, and also climate change and climate resiliency, and investing in strategies that will help mitigate climate change in our country. And that those conversations are happening now, but it is very powerful that nonprofits and individuals in Tucson and throughout Arizona let our congressional delegation know how important it is for them to make those investments in people and in infrastructure for the betterment of our country and the world, frankly. So raise your voices locally in, in the county and in the state, but federally right now, your voices are absolutely necessary to encourage our congressional delegation and our senators to approve that investment that will be transformative for our country and for our families.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So I know that we're wrapping up this discussion, but I did wanted to bring some questions from the audience. So if we have a moment right here, I have Michael and Gwen Stewart. I am on board with the good intentions being expressed here. As my grandma used to say, we are the preacher and I am the choir. You are the preacher, I am the choir. I am struggling to cut through the buzzwords and get to the nub of one, what has been achieved, i.e. how many trees have been planting, where and are we on track? 2, how can I contribute? That's wonderful. 3, what are the 3 main takeaways that I need to be able to recall, evangelize after this meeting? Truly love all the great things you are talking about and all of this. Sorry, moved here on me. We're getting a lot of questions from the public, but I wanted to continue to read this right here. I'm so sorry I lost my place with all these.
Okay, Vanessa, I could
yes.
answer in terms of the trees. The City of Tucson has partnered, the mayor's office has partnered with Tucson Green and Beautiful, Trees for Tucson, which has more than 20 years of planting trees in our community. And so we're in the process of, I'm in the process of doing my own fundraising so that we can invest more than just the green stormwater infrastructure money. So we planted over 14,000 trees in 1 year. We have created a website. So those that want to, if you've planted trees in your house and you want to add to the counter of trees planted here in Tucson, we can provide that information. I'll just put it on the chat so that people can go into that website. If you planted trees, you can put it in there and your trees will count towards the 1 million trees. And then of course, you can contribute to Tucson Green and Beautiful because every dollar you invest in that is invested into Trees for Tucson and into our 1 Million Trees initiative. So yeah, the best thing that you can preach to other people is that we have to reduce our consumption, reuse, and recycle. And every day, every person could add to it. Right now, our transit system is completely free to you. If you've never used the bus before or the streetcar, right now is your opportunity to learn how to use it. It's completely free. You can bike to any bus stop and get on, especially now that we're adding electric buses into our system. So there's so much you could do. And just by conserving water and just by talking to your family about reusing, reducing and recycling anything that you can. Don't use single-use plastics at all. Take your bags to grocery stores and to stores in general so that you don't have to use plastic bags. Every day is an opportunity for people to do something about this.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for joining us this morning. I know it's 10 o'clock and you have a busy schedule up ahead today. But again, I want to thank you, our panelists, Mike Peel, Magdalena Verdugo, for joining us this morning and talking about these great progress that we're doing in collaboration with these great partnerships with Local First Arizona, YWCA, the 2030 district, as well as Tucson Clean and Beautiful. So wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, our program still continues. We have a wonderful video that we're going to be showing up next from Local First Arizona. And I want to give a little brief talk about that. And it's a premiere recognizing the first cohort of local green businesses supported by the YWCA of Arizona and Local First Arizona. It's alongside with Green Champions recognition with the 2030 Tucson District, the House of Neighborly Services, and this will be followed with a ceremonial tree planting video alongside with Tucson Clean and Beautiful and Tucson Million Trees. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you stay tuned. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to all the questions, but we have taken your questions down. Hopefully we'll get some answers to these and be able to provide them in some kind of way for y'all. So thank you so much. If you look on the chat here, there's some links to some great resources as well as also the Million Trees campaign. So thank you very much. And with this, I'm going to pass this to Michael.
While we're waiting for the video to get uploaded, I'll shout out that there's a new publication thanks to the leadership of the YWCA Southern Arizona called Why Climate Action. And I know there was a question about how to take, or many questions about how to take action. There are a lot of details in that publication around resources that have been mentioned today, programs and project details and opportunities. So there's a lot there, and it's really exciting to see all the storytelling being done within that publication and it being a resource guide that we focused on for the work that we've all started as a collaborative, knowing there's a lot more out there and linking to the Changemaker High School project that they've been doing for research on climate action. And so there's a lot of information within that study alone to learn much more about what's going on in the community. And we're looking for more ideas for future publications. So we know that it's not the exhaustive list that it could be. It was not meant to be. It was meant to be a starting point for sharing the work that we're up to and how people can get engaged in our efforts. And we're actively looking for more information from the community to keep adding to what's going on with the climate emergency declaration efforts. That's all listed, the programs and projects that are listed here that you've heard about today. And we know there's a lot more. So please reach out, and there's information on how to do that in the publication.
Hi, my name is Mike Peel. I'm the Statewide Sustainability Director for Local First Arizona. And welcome to the first City of Tucson Climate Action Anniversary event through partnership with the YWCA of Southern Arizona and Local First Arizona. We're excited to celebrate the progress made in the last year in the community. Local First Arizona is committed to environmental action, and that includes prioritizing long-term goals for Arizona communities to be healthier and the economy to be stronger, with an emphasis on equity. We can meet larger essential climate goals through community engagement, local resourcefulness, and systems change. Change is possible through collaboration. A major milestone to celebrate is YWCA's House of Neighborly Service and its work embarking on a journey to build community resilience and become more sustainable by 2030 and beyond. The House of Neighborly Service is becoming a community green space for learning about environmental, economic, and community benefits, prioritizing equity and inclusion for the first Tucson 2030 District Green Champions Program project committed to the 2030 challenge for planning goals of 50% reductions or more related to energy, water, and transportation. And that includes many partners making that happen. Thank you to the YWCA of Southern Arizona for your commitment to all of the programs offered through Local First Arizona and taking action. You are committed to the green leaders and scale up and the Green Champions program by going through this yourselves and walking the walk. It's very inspiring, and you can learn more about it in the new publication that is available through the YWCA of Southern Arizona, Local First Arizona, and many other partners. And that's the Y Climate Action publication. Also, big thank you to the YWCA's summer cohort of certified green leaders that you'll hear more about both in the publication and in the following videos. We thank you all for taking real climate action for the Tucson community and for future generations. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Shifka with Local First Arizona, and we're very excited to recognize the 5 graduates of the YWCA Green Business Cohort for the bold actions they are taking in their businesses to serve communities in South Tucson. And a big thank you again to the YWCA of Southern Arizona for championing this action through collaboration. To set the tone with a quote from Tucson Mayor Regina Romero, "With record-breaking temperatures, increasingly dry summers, and historic wildfires, the need to act boldly to combat climate change and build resiliency in our city has never been more apparent." In saying that, there is significant opportunity to celebrate the progress for the first year of the City of Tucson's historic climate emergency declaration and to showcase to the community how to act and address all goals of the City of Tucson and its partners on this declaration. So to that end, highlights of the program include Climate Action weekly educational sessions, project planning customized support and resources, and business cohort and ongoing community of support.
Thanks, Nick. So my name is Kelly Liska with Local First Arizona Sustainability, and now we will recognize the hard work of each graduate of the YWCA Green Business Program. So first is Cleaning Circle LLC. Congratulations. This family-owned business has always been careful to reduce their impact on the environment, reducing their energy and water use daily by installing gray water irrigation, being intentional about transportation, and using efficient appliances and tools. They have also implemented an equitable and inclusive hiring process. They intentionally welcome female employees with financial need, and they have a very positive impact on the Tucson community and economy. In the future, Cleaning Circle aims to continue to learn about sustainability, keep benchmarking their energy, gas, water use to track how they're doing, include more sustainable cleaning supplies in their daily operations, and collaborate with their community on new projects. Next, we have Cause Rain and Weaving Webs. So Tyrell Black Moss of Cause Rain and Weaving Webs is a powerhouse. Cause Rain and their collaborative Dream School is an oral and cultural history project and spiritual and personal development service. Weaving Webs offers holistic support to business owners, graduate students, entrepreneurs, innovators, creatives, and paradigm shifters who are incubating projects and ideas, combining traditional Indigenous African research and modern operation standards. So the missions of all of Tyrell's projects explicitly benefit Black and Indigenous people of color, trans folks, and youth. They are unparalleled in their collaboration efforts, weaving environmental and social justice into all the work they take on. They're currently working on a sustainability and green business plan for body and spirit care, which is a handmade herbal line that focuses on wholesale orders for those working on anti-racism projects and supporting Black and Indigenous wellness. A plan to distribute free care packages to transgender folks, homeless people, and domestic violence survivors, and also to create a co-working space for other Black and Indigenous wellness practitioners to build their businesses, and for a youth program that includes talking circles, athletics, herbal medicine, and nutrition learning, among many other projects. One of their major goals is to expand Dream School, which has currently been online, into an eco-friendly brick and mortar K through 20 school. And in the more immediate future, they're also participating in the Local First Arizona We Rise program to develop all these plans even further. Congratulations to Tyrell from Cause Rain and Weaving Webs. Next, we have Harris Fletcher Enterprises. Congratulations for graduating the YWCA Green Business Program. They are currently retrofitting an existing housing structure with Energy Star rated appliances and efficient water sense fixtures. They're also working on building envelope improvements to reduce their energy by 25 to 50% in projections. So for next steps, they're working on outdoor shading and window blinds, putting in a free bike rack and possibly electric vehicle charging station. And they're also working on a food forest and putting in native trees and fruit trees. And to that end, on September 18th, we call everybody, if you're interested, to come and volunteer to plant trees and create this urban forest with us. You can email us for more information. And all of their work has benefited their local community, who are mostly Black tenants, refugees, and disabled veterans. So congratulations again. Next, we have Highwire Lounge. Nick Wayne of the Highwire Lounge has been a very active member of the YWCA Green Business Program cohort. Highwire has done a lot of work around tracking and reducing their energy consumption, collaborating with and donating to community organizations, and creating a comprehensive plan for possible disasters that will be incorporated into their business and employee training plan for the future, increasing their resiliency and sustainability. Next, Highwire is planning a revamp of the alleyway next to their lounge, Arizona Avenue, which will include solar panels, rainwater harvesting, native plants, and fixtures using recycled materials such as glass. So congratulations again to Highwire Lounge. Finally, congratulations to Poblanos Carpentry. Poblanos takes every opportunity to make sure their employees are safe while on the job, participating in trainings related to indoor air quality, avoiding lead exposure, and sustainable practices. They use traditional and sustainable techniques, purchasing fair trade wood and other products that are also biodegradable and long-lasting. They've also been able to install rainwater harvesting, and they have a gray water irrigation system. They also collaborate with organizations all around Tucson and participate in programs offered by CIRI, TILO, the University of Arizona College of Public Health, and Las Milpitas Farm. And they are currently working on a plan to install more solar panels and increase the installation of their warehouse to reduce energy consumption even further. And finally, just a shout out to the other participants of the program who got involved early on, and we're very grateful for their participation. So V's Healthy Living, the Tucson Rainwater Harvesting Co-op, and This and That Creative Studio. So thank you everyone for participating, and congratulations again to all the graduates.
Repercussions from the impacts we've made on the environment is no surprise at this point, but there are things we can do to start changing the way we live and work. Over the summer, I participated in Green Leaders, a program developed by Local First Arizona and the YWCA here in Tucson. In regards to sustainability, waste reduction, equity, and inclusion, I've gained a wealth of knowledge on ways to start implementing change now. Highwire is committed to doing our share, and part of that is a proposed activation project along Arizona Avenue here in downtown. Rainwater harvesting, additional lighting powered by solar, planters and benches made from recycled materials, and a mural by local artist and businesswoman Jennifer Johnson. These are all steps to combat climate change, drought, and our community's needs. The future in downtown is looking green.
So what are your reduction and other goals, including from the certification this summer for the next year ahead?
So our reduction goals are to include a bicycle rack, in which we'll be putting together on September 18th. And so reducing carbon emissions. We're also creating a food forest, which will reduce the amount of pollutants going into the air. And also we are reducing the energy in the house by 50. And we also reducing water by using water sense toilets, etc.
Thank you.
So why did you join the YWCA Green Business Program, and what have you gained from it?
The main reason why we joined the YWCA business program was to just add on to our existing sustainability goals. We wanted to become more knowledgeable. We also wanted to add the tag of green leaders for our community here in Tucson. One of the greatest benefits we've got from that is the benefit of writing a more detailed business plan and really honing in on some of the very specific items that we need to finalize our project plan for the Urban Forest Project.
Wondering if you could share some of the story on why it is that you're working to create such a sustainable enterprise. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yes, both Herman and I both grew up homeless. I grew up on Skid Row, and then Herman grew up homeless in Chester, Pennsylvania. And so we understand what it means to struggle and not to have. And so we still have family members who continue to suffer from food, housing, and financial insecurities. And so our goal is to provide support for our communities, in which so many people supported us growing up. And we think that it's very important to continue to provide sustainable living spaces for people of color particularly, and people who are experiencing generational poverty.
Thank you for these great responses. Can you let us now know, and the audience know, how to contact you and get involved?
Yes, you can reach the Urban Forest Project at www.harrisfletcher.com/the Urban Forest Project. And you can also see us on Instagram at Urban Forest by HF. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation. It's been great, and I'm looking forward to what's ahead.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miriam Rojas. My husband and I, we are owner of our business. The name is Poblanos Carpentry. We make cabinets for kitchen and bathroom. The phone number, if you want to contact us, is 520-301-7994. I start to change things on my home, like I have solar panels in my house, I change the windows, I had air condition, and I had a barrel for collecting rainwater. I think this is the important things to start change the environment, but the principle they change my house. That change I want to improve in my business. I would like to put insulation on the walls and put panel solar in the future. This program had a good information, and I hope has the resource to help a business owner. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Mi nombre es Irene Araujo y soy propietaria de una empresa llamada Cleaning Circle LLC aquí en la ciudad de Tucson, Arizona. Nos dedicamos a dar servicio de limpieza comercial y residencial. Me puedes encontrar en el 520-869-1082 o encuéntrame también en Facebook con el nombre de Cleaning Circle LLC. Gracias. También te quiero hablar un poquito acerca de lo que fue mi participación como estudiante en este programa creado por el YWCA, Fuerza Local, Arizona, la ciudad de Tucson y algunos otros más patrocinadores. Este programa llamado Green Business para mí fue un gran impacto tanto de educación y en entrar en conciencia de lo que viene a ser sustentable, pasar del querer al hacer. Para mí este programa estuvo muy completo porque reúne mucha información, el diálogo que tuvimos con nuestros presentadores. Muchísimas gracias a cada uno de ustedes porque en cada clase en la que aportaron mucho para mi aprendizaje. ¿Qué me llevo de este programa? De este programa me llevo el compromiso, como lo acabo de decir, de ser una persona sustentable, de ser una empresaria sustentable, donde las personas que trabajan conmigo, que las personas que van a llegar a trabajar conmigo tengan el compromiso o aprendan de mí con mis acciones a ser sustentable, a que los recursos que ahorita tenemos, que es un privilegio, sigamos conservándonos de una manera responsable para el bienestar de nuestros hijos, de nuestras futuras generaciones, de nuestro medio ambiente. Es muy importante, como les vuelvo a repetir, es muy importante tomar acción. Y gracias a todas esas personas que han hecho organizaciones en beneficio de esta sostenibilidad y esos recursos que están aquí para nosotros, la verdad voy a tomar en cuenta cada uno de ellos, participaré y en aprender y seguiré aprendiendo para seguir con mi responsabilidad de estar, como dije, ser sustentable y estar responsable con todas mis acciones en beneficio de todo lo que rodea cuidar lo que tenemos. Gracias.
Dream School is for Black and Indigenous students to feel safe to dream. I was inspired by my experiences while homeless and losing friends to suicide. In the next year, my team is raising capital for our brick and mortar K through 20 school. Dream School will reconnect students to their Indigenous and African spiritual technologies, give them tools to reduce anxiety and move through trauma, and do collective dreaming through public art projects like city-wide projection mapping. Come dream with us. Time to go night.
Hi, I'm Akani Oyebola, acting mayor here in the city of South Tucson. I think this is a very impactful day. We're doing a lot of work here for climate change, planting a tree, a desert lily, something that I think the community can grasp and we can plant more.
My name is Bob Tesso. I'm mayor of the city of South Tucson. And basically we're here working with HNS, House of Neighborly Service, which has been here many years now. It was here when I was a boy, and obviously that makes it a long time ago. And working with YWCA, who has basically taken over the project here at HNS and is looking for ways in how it can benefit our community. We have a lot of needs here. Well, we suffer from a lot of poverty. We have healthcare needs. We have strong wills. We're going to continue to work on our little city and get it going to maybe what it was maybe 30 years ago. We volunteered to come out here, some of the council members and a lot of other people from the neighborhood here who come to help and try and knock down all the weeds, and it needs a lot of tender loving care, but we're getting there.
So I think the most important thing that anyone can do if they want to be a contributor to climate change mitigation is plant a tree, and that's what we did today. If everybody in this community said, I'm gonna plant a tree, we'd be there within 6 months. So let's hear it for Tucson and a million trees. Of course, Mrs. Green loves the green, but it helps in so many ways. So yeah, get out there, plant a tree, support Tucson Clean and Beautiful, and look what we're doing at the House of Neighborly Service.
This tree for us symbolizes our hope for our future as we work together to hopefully build a more sustainable environment for our children and our grandchildren to come. We're right now at the HNS, House of Neighborly Services, that will be celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. And so we will be back here in December celebrating with community the great work that we're doing here, enhancing our facilities, because we want this place to be like what you see behind me is community accessing, community participating, community, just ownership, learning together how we can have a more sustainable future.
Hi, I'm Mike Peel. I'm the Statewide Sustainability Director for Local First Arizona. We are a community development organization focused on local businesses and nonprofits, and we focus on strengthening the local economy and community to make it more diverse and inclusive and resilient and sustainable. So today we're here with this planting of the ceremonial tree, and we're thankful to all the partners that have been involved, from the City of South Tucson to the City of Tucson and the Million Trees Initiative, to the YWCA of Southern Arizona, House of Neighborly Service, Tucson Clean and Beautiful, and many others. Mrs. Green's World as well is here on site. And the way I see it, this is a gift to the future. What we're doing here today is symbolic of all the work we're continuing to do into the future on climate action and also meeting national goals. We are all committing to the 2030 challenge for planning nationally for 50% reductions in energy, water, and more within this site. So it's very exciting for us to be here today, and we look forward to a whole lot more ahead.
Wow, what a fantastic video. I just want to thank again the Mayor Regina Romero, the City of Tucson, the YWCA, Local First Arizona, Tucson Clean and Beautiful, Tucson Million Trees for making this event possible. And I want to thank the public for being here and being committed to making change here in Tucson. On this chat, you can see a lot of resources that we've talked about today. If you're not able to get into the chat, please reach out to Local First, YWCA, the City of Tucson, and Tucson Clean and Beautiful to see how you can become part of the movement and be another person on this team. So thank you again to everyone who's joining us. And we look forward to more actions in the future. So thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and adelante. And apparently I never introduced myself. I'm Vanessa Gallego. I'm from here, Tucson, Arizona, born and raised, and I was just really happy to be here. So thank you.